I think of Scott Stevens, and I think of strength personified.
Guys, when you talk about Scott Stevens, you're talking about just the 22nd player in NHL history with over 1,300 games.
A lot of people knew that Scotty had a temper, and they took advantage of it.
Scott Stevens, I think, is probably one of the best all time. The quality of his open ice hitting to change sometimes the way you played the game.
Gets to the ball! That's the hardest hit of the series by Stevens.
If you made that mistake, I mean, look at the catalog of guys that they carted off the ice. That was a bad place to be.
Long before he was a terrifying captain of the New Jersey Devils, Scott Stevens was a standout for the Kitchener Rangers. Born in 1964, Stevens was always physically advanced for his age. When the Washington Capitals drafted him 5th overall in 1982, they knew they were getting a cornerstone. Stevens made the jump to the NHL immediately at age 18, and he didn't just survive, he thrived. In his rookie year, he made the all-rookie team and proved that he could play a hard-nosed, physical game while still putting up points. He was a prototype of the modern defenseman, big, fast, and mean.
At 18 when he arrived, and we were like, oh my God, this guy's the real deal.
With his passion and his physical dominance, he just played himself onto a position on the team, and then once he got playing, he just became a more well-rounded defenseman, not losing any of his offensive abilities, but only using them and picking and choosing when he used those abilities.
After 8 dominant seasons in Washington, Stevens signed as a restricted free agent with the St. Louis Blues in 1990. It was a move that changed the business of hockey forever. A year later, the Blues signed another star, Brendan Shanahan. Because of the rules at the time, the Blues had to provide compensation to the New Jersey Devils. The Devils demanded Scott Stevens. The Blues refused. The case went to an arbitrator, who made the shocking decision to award Stevens to the New Jersey Devils. Initially, Stevens was devastated. He didn't want to go to New Jersey, a team that was often mocked as a Mickey Mouse organization at the time. He even considered a holdout. But once he arrived, he realized he had found his true home. He didn't just join the Devils. He became the architect of their identity.
Culture that we were trying to establish in New Jersey, we had a phrase that you have to give up your own identity to have success. The crest in front is more important than the name in the back, and if we could convince Scotty to, be the best defensive defenseman in the league, is how he could shut down other teams, but there's no question that it would take away from his offense. And he had to accept that, and he did that. He set the tone for that type of discipline and also team attitude.
Under coach Jacques Lemaire, the Devils implemented the neutral zone trap. It was a defensive system that required total discipline, and Stevens was the perfect general for it. This is where the scoring Scott Stevens evolved into the shutdown Scott Stevens. He realized that to win championships, he had to sacrifice his individual stats for team success. He became a master of the open ice hit. In the 90s, the middle of the ice belonged to Scott Stevens. If a forward entered the Devils zone with their head down, it wasn't a matter of if Stevens would hit them, but how hard. He didn't use his stick to stop you. He used his shoulder, and he used it with the force of a freight train.
I could play defense and defend and wasn't a liability. Also, I wanted to play physical. That was my game, and I always felt I had some offense, but I wanted to make sure I was reliable, and the coaches could count on me to play and not be a liability.
In 1995, the Devils reached the Stanley Cup final against the heavily favored Detroit Red Wings. The Red Wings had the Russian Five and a high-flying offense, but the Devils had Stevens. In Game 2, Stevens delivered one of the most famous hits in history on Slava Kozlov. It was a legal, devastating blow that sent a message to the entire Detroit bench. You are not welcome in our zone. The Devils swept the Red Wings in 4 games, winning their first championship. Stevens was a captain who hoisted the trophy in the Devils' way. A culture of grit, defense, and intimidation was officially born.
Who hit the hardest, in your opinion?
On our team or against? I mean, Scott Stevens, my great teammate captain.
First, you dream about playing in the National Hockey League, and then after that, you want to win championships, win a Stanley Cup. And for me, you're starting to think, am I going to be one of those guys that had a good career, played on some great teams, but never had a chance to hoist a Stanley Cup? So I think it was a bit of a relief to finally win our first Stanley Cup.
What made Stevens different from other tough guys was that he almost never fought. He didn't need to. He didn't want to sit in the penalty box for 5 minutes. He wanted to stay on the ice and make you fear for your life every time you touched the puck. Players like Paul Kariya, Eric Lindros, and Shane Willis all learned the hard way that crossing the blue line against number 4 came with a high price. While some of these hits are viewed differently in today's concussion-aware NHL, at the time, they were the ultimate display of defensive dominance.
He kept everybody accountable. He was a great leader for us. I think everybody looked up to him when times were tough. We knew he was going to handle himself the right way, and he would play the right way.
He made us better. He made me better for sure, and the compete level that he had is bar none the best of anybody that I've ever played.
The year 2000 was perhaps Stevens' greatest individual achievement. The Devils trailed the Philadelphia Flyers 3-1 in the Eastern Conference Finals. Stevens gathered the team and refused to let them quit. They roared back to win the series in 7 games, a series punctuated by the famous hit on Eric Lindros.
He goes down the left side, he cuts along the blue line, and Stevens is waiting for him the other side, and he hit him, and his helmet went up. Remember, the helmet went up, and he hit his head, and that was the end of it.
Here's 88. Lindros makes the move, and Lindros is hammered down to the ice by Scott Stevens.
I was on the ice for it, and I just remember it. And, you know, we knew Scotty hits like that all the time, but I mean, to hit a man of Eric Lindros' size that hard, it was scary.
After the Lindros hit, I was watching from up high, and I've often mentioned this, since that year, and it's been almost 20 years since, I never saw a defenseman individually have a better defensive game than what Scott Stevens.
In the final against the Dallas Stars, Stevens was a machine. He played nearly 30 minutes a night, shut down Mike Modano, and led the Devils to their second Stanley Cup. He was awarded the Conn Smythe Trophy as the playoff MVP. It was a rare moment where the hockey world acknowledged that the most valuable player wasn't the one scoring the goals, but the one preventing them. By 2003, Stevens was a veteran of over 20 seasons. His body was battered, but his will was unbroken. He led the Devils to their 3rd Stanley Cup in 9 years. Even in his late 30s, Stevens was the gold standard for conditioning. He was often the first one in the gym and the last one off the ice. He led a defensive unit that included Brian Rafalski and a young Scott Niedermayer, acting as a mentor for the next generation of great blue liners. When the final buzzer sounded in 2003, Stevens became one of the few captains in history to lead his team to 3 championships.
Most feared players to play against, for me personally, I knew when I was playing against Scott to make sure I kept my head up, and not only for part of the shift, but for the whole shift. He was a guy that I respected a lot, a pillar of strength for the Devils, and one of the big reasons I were able to win their Stanley Cups.
In 2004, Stevens' career came to an abrupt end due to post-concussion syndrome. It was a cruel irony that the man who delivered the biggest hits in the game was forced out by the same thing. He retired with 1,635 games played, the most ever by a defenseman at the time. He was inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in 2007, his first year of eligibility. The Devils retired his number 4 jersey, ensuring that no one would ever wear it again. But his legacy isn't just in the rafters. It's in the DNA of the New Jersey Devils. Scott Stevens was the ultimate warrior. He was a player who evolved from a high-scoring talent into the most feared defensive force the game has ever seen. He didn't care about being liked. He cared about winning. He transformed a struggling franchise into a 3-time champion through sheer force of will. He was an iron captain, a man of few words but massive impact. In the history of the NHL, there have been many great defensemen, but there will only ever be one Scott Stevens, the man who owned the middle of the ice and the man who taught an entire generation what it means to be a champion.